5-minute penalty to Chicago, a game misconduct, and then Manson having words with Steven. And now Butcher gets into it. We're going to have a brawl, folks. Stand by.
What's up, everybody? Tyler Cash here. It's another episode of Fourth Line Goon Hockey Podcast. Hanging out here in Las Vegas, Nevada, chatting with my boy Tommy. How you doing, bud?
Doing good. Post-trade deadline, a little bit less stressful for most people. Let's get into it. Let's roll.
Yeah, as we talked about last episode, there were a couple moves that were made, a couple that they held back on. Go back and listen to that episode. Watch it. Actually, it's gaining some traction on YouTube, which is very exciting. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. We don't have an official link because YouTube is a bunch of bitches and they don't give them out anymore. But if you go to fourthlinegoon.com, you can find the link to our YouTube as well as our Spotify and Apple podcast all through the Facebook page that we run. But yeah, go back and watch the episode, listen to it. It was a blast, but now we're down to the wire. It is the end of the regular season is among us. We're probably somewhere in the ballpark of anywhere between 13, I'd say 15 games left. We got about a month left, which I just want to throw out there. Guess who just bought his plane ticket to a little game in St. Louis, Missouri on April 29th? Are you going? Have you thought about it?
What jersey are you wearing?
Oh, you know what I'm wearing, bud. It's going to come down to the wire. That's what made me decide to pull the trigger. I was like, shit, dude, that game might actually be like a deciding factor on whether or not the Knights make it into the playoffs.
It very well could be. I don't know. I think it might coincide with baseball. It does. So that actually would work out because I wanted to catch Cardinal game, which that would be a good weekend to do so. Yeah, make it happen.
Sweet. Yeah, I want to go in, load up on Emo's pizza and some Busch beer, and then partake in and hopefully a very exciting hockey game. Of course, maybe by then the Knights might be knocked out of playoff contention, and it will mean absolutely nothing to me, and I'll just be bummed. But either way, always a good time, especially going to a Blues game in St. Louis. Yeah. Let's get into it, and let's attach the Knights a little bit. I feel like the biggest topic last episode was the whole Dadonov trade. It was rejected by the league, something we don't normally see. Apparently, the Anaheim Ducks were part of his 10-team trade clause. We don't need to get into the specifics. We talked about that last episode, but man, Dadonov's been lighting it up since. Actually, my notes say 5 points, but it's 8 points since the trade. I believe it's 5 goals and 3 assists for 8 points. Man, I bet they feel kind of silly moving a dude who's moving in. I think he's second in goals scored for the team, but I mean, you love to see it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like a rally cry, like similar to like a new coach, where it's like this guy's leaving and it's like, I'm not fucking leaving, like fuck this, I'm staying, and then everyone kind of like rallies around it, where it's like, oh, like I hate this guy, new coach is in, sweet, let's go. Like it's kind of like that little jolt of energy, which helps for sure, especially for him, who he's had a good season. I'm sure Knights fans yourself would agree that it could have been better, should be better, but the way he's played these last few games, I'm sure will make you forget about that a little bit. But yeah, we'll see what happens with it. I mean, it's going to be real interesting to see how the hell you get Mark Stone or, potentially Alex Martinez back in the lineup before season end, if you do at all. But that's a whole nother discussion. But I mean, good for Dadonov. He's just like, fuck it, I'm not leaving, and fuck you, I'm going to go play my ass off. And then maybe you can trade me somewhere that I want to go in the offseason.
Right. Yeah, you love to see it. And as you said, it's just a jolt of energy in the locker room. And I don't think it was any hate on the player. It was a business move. They needed to shed some salary cap, and as you mentioned, activate Mark Stone. They did activate Alec Martinez and Braden McNabb, who wasn't on LTR, but he's back. So they're relatively healthy. They just have Riley Smith and Mark Stone. Even Leonard is back on the bench. Whether or not it's too little too late is to be seen. They do have a 3-game winning streak at hand. Granted, they have been relatively easy. They're playing the Seattle Kraken back-to-back. I want to talk about this, though. I think a really cool story is the undrafted Logan Thompson, who's kind of showing up and being a little bit of a Jordan Binnington. He's got a little bit of that spark, the cockiness. I see him critiquing media in his post-game interviews. He's like, oh yeah, well, so-and-so said I need to watch my blocker side. So I've been making it a point to do that, which, by the way, shout out to Mike McKenna, who was the one that pointed that out. But I don't know, man. It seems like he's actually doing what Leonard said he was doing from the very beginning, and feeding off the haters, as you would. And you love to see it. He's been grinding in Henderson to the Silver Knights, and he has a very similar style to Marc-Andre Fleury, and he's got that connection to the community. So people are really rooting for him around Vegas, which, yeah, that's going to amp up a locker room. It's going to get fans excited again. And, you love to see it if you're a Vegas Golden Knight. But yeah, Dadonov, man, awesome. He's a great story. And DeBoer went on to say, if anybody can handle it, it's him. He's purely professional. And you love to see that, because if that would have happened to, say, like a Marchessault, we know that how he is. He's a hothead, and he might not have handled it as well. And that could have been the end of the season for him and the Knights.
Yeah,
if it had been somebody like Marchessault. So it says a lot about Dadonov's character to shrug it off and to keep putting the points up. I think that's great. So yeah, like I said, I believe he's 8 points since that trade. He scored the overtime game winner, which is just the icing on the cake against Chicago when they came back from that 3-0. Let's talk about Chicago, man. Holy shit. Like, two back-to-back games, they blew a 3-0 lead and a 4-0 lead to the Knights and the Sabres. I mean, I guess they sold, right? And they're not really the same team, but it seems as if they don't give a flying fuck out there.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, you don't see it too often, especially 3 and 4 goal leads blown like that, especially like on back-to-back games, like you said. But I mean, who cares? Let them burn, especially after all this shit that happened this year with them. Like, yeah, no.
We can watch them burn in the gutter for quite some time to pay for not only how they handled their shit as an organization, but just, yeah, I mean, all the pain they put us through for all those years, for sure. They got their wins, so now they can go through their suffering.
Agreed.
Speaking of suffering, Nathan MacKinnon injured fighting Matt Dumba. At first, it looked really bad, and they were saying broken hand, broken wrist. It appears as if he's going tonight, which I think is a dumb move, because the Avs are like a Sherlock, right? He clearly did something, because in the post-game interview, they said it was highly concerning, which is nerve-wracking, right? You don't just throw those terms around lightly. He was fighting Matt Dumba, which is also stupid, because why are you even fighting your two teams that have pretty much a lock in the playoffs? And yeah, it looks like he connected with Dumba's chin or the side of his head, and it kind of bent his arm back. My speculation is he probably broke a finger, which was the same speculation that we had for Jack Eichel. So it's more painful than it is a setback. I don't know. What's your take on that whole scenario? You think he's fighting through some major pain, or what?
I mean, it depends. Like, I mean, from what I saw in the video, like, yeah, he could have jammed his wrist. He could have jammed a finger. In those instances, stuff swells up. You can't really know what's going on to get x-rays on it or whatever, because stuff kind of really stiffens up and swells. But yeah, I mean, I don't really see an issue with it. I mean, like, for example, physical game, I think like what Braden Shin played through cracked ribs and then like re-cracked the same ribs and like didn't miss any time. We saw that picture with his finger like full on like bent and just like snaps it back in place on the ice after he scores a goal. Like, these guys are tough. Like, a finger is not going to stop a player, especially of McKinnon's caliber, from playing hockey and is really sitting out going to do anything. Like, the worst thing that could happen is like maybe you get slashed perfectly on the finger and it hurts it even more. But like, I don't think that's gonna cause him to not play, especially with where they're at, because they still want to, they still want to chase, of course, President's Trophy and all that stuff too. So if it's something where it's like your finger is like shattered versus like it's a little fracture or you dislocated it, you're probably okay. Just tape it up and hopefully avoid contact on it. You'll be fine. Last thing I think you want to do is like your superstar player to miss 4 weeks and come back like, yeah, he'll be rested, but how sharp is he going to be? That's a huge question mark too going into the playoffs.
Yeah, it's clearly not as drastic as they thought it was going to be, but I just think it's silly that he's going to fight through pain before the playoffs even start. Like, we have a good month, and you have Landeskog already out as well. And, you want these guys fully rested, especially when they have something to prove after being knocked out in the second round last year. I don't think they even went very far the year before. They basically have been a disappointment and on paper, because they're always the Cup favorites. They've been the Cup favorites for 3 years now, I think, over Tampa, even during that scenario, which is, it's just crazy. I would be interested to watch him tonight and see if he takes any faceoffs, because I know Jack Eichel wasn't taking any faceoffs. He's moved to the wing, and they were concerned about his finger. So it could be something like that, as you said. Maybe he might play less ice time, a more dwindled down role. Don't take faceoffs.
Yeah.
sure as hell don't get in another fucking fight like a month before you're supposed to make a deep playoff run. I mean, I get that that guy's a hothead. We know he's hungry. He's horny for that cup for sure. But I mean, that's the kind of mentality though that's going to dig them a deep hole if you don't think right. Like if you don't have a hockey IQ, keep a level head, and I don't know, man, you let your emotions get the best of you, and you might get some entertaining hockey, but you may not get the end result that you want.
Yeah, but like, a well-rested player, you're not going to need more than a few days off. These guys are elite conditioned players that are superstars. Like they're not going to need, a month to recover, rest to really, feel good unless there's some genuine major injury that's not a finger, which isn't the case here. So I think it'll be fine. Time will tell. Like, yeah, we'll see tonight, or maybe it's production. If the production levels off over the next week or two, like maybe it's a cause for concern. Maybe they do start resting him more. Who knows? But I think it's fine for now. I really do. But let's talk about another beatdown. Fucking Pittsburgh Penguins going and throwing the fucking Red Wings under the bus. 11-2. First time that's happened since the Caps scored 12 in 2003. Brutal beating. And like I texted my friend who's a Penguins fan. I'm like, you really gotta do Oscar Sundqvist like that? Really? Just like, come on.
I believe it was 16 Penguins players had points, which is crazy
nuts.
too. There was no hat tricks involved to my knowledge. I would be interested to see what the stats were of that Capitals game where they beat the Florida Panthers. I think it was 12-1 or 12-2. I'd be interested to see like if anyone had a hat trick during that or multiple points. But yeah, I mean, it seems like they were a well-rounded team. I think that's showing Pittsburgh's, they're what did you just find? I could see from your face.
Yeah,
what is this?
So I just looked up the box score, and Jágr had 3 goals and 4 assists in that game.
And was that his last year in the league?
2003? I don't think so. Maybe with the Capitals, but I don't think in the league. I could be wrong.
He was with the Capitals?
He was with the Capitals at that point.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah, I believe they were talking about on the most recent Chicklets episode, like there's 12 teams the Jágr's played on, and some of them blew my mind. I know that I didn't know he was a Bruin, and he was a Bruin the year that they lost in the playoffs to the Chicago Blackhawks, the year that they won. I think it might have been their second year.
Yeah.
The second cup that they won during that whole stretch. But
Bruin, a Star, a Flyer, like
yeah,
all these random teams.
He's been everywhere. 11-2 against the Detroit Red Wings. Hasn't happened in the salary cap era, which is just wild. Definitely go back and watch the highlights for that. I made sure I did that. YouTube does it justice. You can skip over a little bit and just catch all the highlights. But as far as injuries go and taking beatings, Clayton Keller out for the remainder of the season. They said 4 to 6 months with a broken, I think they said fractured leg. He took an ugly spill behind the net. You hate to see that because the kid was having almost damn near a career year.
Yeah.
I'm looking up the stats because I don't have them handy, but there it is. Yeah, 28 goals, 35 assists for 63 points in 67 games. So damn near a point per game player.
On the worst team in the league.
Yeah, and you hate to see it. He's injured. I know he gave 2 thumbs up and he tweeted saying everything's okay. Just, common injury. I'll be back next year. It's not like they're even in the running. They were one of the few that were knocked off early. Were they the first team that was from contention?
Yep,
I believe so. And since then we've had quite a few. I know Seattle was knocked as well. The Flyers were one. We're getting to that point where teams are starting to drop like flies.
Yep.
But yeah, you hate to see it. Clayton Keller, St. Louis boy, right? From St. Louis as well.
Yeah.
So I know I'm eating crow on this because I always said he was never really going to be much of anything at all because I've seen him play around town and nothing ever really stuck out for me. But yeah, I'm definitely eating crow. He's doing great on that team and obviously having a career year.
Yeah. I mean, sucks to see, without a doubt. It literally reminded me of like the Steve Ott injury a few years ago. I went to go check a guy and missed in both his legs, just like that. It was just really painful to see. But like, I think he like tore his like hamstring versus breaking a leg. But I mean, both still suck.
I don't know, man. I'd rather take a broken bone than tearing a muscle.
I think so. Yeah.
That's like the ACL and like the hamstrings and all that shit, dude. That's scary. And it's like it grows and it fuses together and it's just basically a matter of time before it's gonna not operate the same way, especially when you're working out and trying to grow muscles, especially if you're a young kid too. Like he's still like kind of finding his final form. Hate to see it, but yeah, broken bone to our knowledge and not the muscle. And I think I kind of jumped the gun a little bit on the playoff contention because we did not talk about it on the last episode. It wasn't a thing yet. The Montreal Canadiens were the first eliminated from playoff contention.
Okay.
And they were, horrible year, right?
Yeah,
terrible.
Also makes sense with how like higher up in the points, like the top 8 are for the East versus the West too. So yeah.
Yeah, the West is a question mark, as we said. There's plenty of teams that are still at it. Dallas, the Blues are pretty much a lock. Dallas is kind of a lock, I would say, but then you have also the Knights, the Kings, Edmonton might shit the bed. I mean, there's a lot of question marks there towards the end. But they're the first team eliminated from playoff contention, which is crazy to go from the Stanley Cup final to the first team eliminated. I think that has to be the first time that's ever happened. I don't know for a fact. Like I've never Googled that stat, but I'd be willing to bet that's the worst drop off in NHL history, or at least damn near one of them.
Yeah, I feel like you used to have to top it or tie it. Because like even like a team that's won the cup, like I've heard of them missing, but not like just completely just shitting the bed. But I mean, I think we all know the Canadiens sold their soul to get to that cup final for so many different reasons. But
they invented COVID. That's what it was.
Because
okay, I don't mean that, so don't flag the COVID restriction thing on this video. But yeah, I mean that's the only way, right? They played nothing but Canadian teams to get them to that spot, and obviously in the playoffs they had to prove themselves. But you can play a dumbed down defensive minded game and win a few, and they had some matchups that they were able to capitalize on that. Even Toronto being one of those. So yeah, if you're a Leafs fan, you got to love seeing the Habs knocked out. I know that I just recently uploaded that video of Justin Bieber trash talking Habs fans in Montreal, which love to see it. I'm sure that there were a couple of angry Habs fans that are no longer believers at this point, but still entertaining. And but as far as the Leafs go, they're out goalies. Campbell's out right now. Mrazek's out 6 weeks with an injury, so I guess they're going to give their hand at some of these. I don't even know their third string goalie.
David Ayers, the Zamboni driver.
They're going to bring the Zamboni driver. Hey, at this point, I mean, fuck it. I mean, you're pretty much a lock, right? I don't think they're going to shit the bed completely, but and maybe that might help them match up against a better team when it comes to the postseason.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's definitely scary because depending on when Mrazek and Campbell come back into play, are they going to be ready? Are they going to be ready for playoff hockey? I mean, Campbell's been pretty much a career backup his entire stay in the NHL. So it's like, is he going to be ready? You're definitely not going to throw Mrazek in. He's just been a shit show lately.
Yeah. Agreed. So we'll see what happens there. I mean, like we already said, I think everyone in the East who's in is in. It's just a matter of where they're going to match up seed wise, who they're going to play, all that fun stuff.
Hey now, what's up, goons? Tyler Cash here, and it's time to pause the podcast and chat a bit about our amazing sponsors over at Schlafly Brewing Company. Hockey and beer. Does it get any better? I don't think so. Schlafly has been brewing up some of the best beer I've ever had for many years, and it's officially that time of year for their famous Raspberry Hefeweizen. It's one of my personal favorites. Their Raspberry Hefeweizen distinguishes itself among others in that it's a true fruit beer. None of this fruit-flavored crap. It uses real raspberry in the brewing process. Once the fruit's sugar ferments out, the aroma and flavor stay in, making this a delightful drinkable beer that's not too sweet or tart. It's refreshing and balanced with a natural hazy pink coloring. Because it's low in alcohol, it brings out a smooth dose of weediness, and it's perfect for summer. It's perfect for any time. Download the Schlafly app or visit schlafly.com to locate and devour yours today. That's SCHLAFLY.com. Schlafly Beer. Drink Mo Beer. This podcast is brought to you by 1 in a Million Handyman Services Incorporated. 1 in a Million is a family-run local company that's been serving the Las Vegas, Nevada area for over 15 years. They are licensed and insured throughout Clark County and travel as far as Boulder City, Henderson, Las Vegas, and North Las Vegas. One in a Million specializes in smaller home repairs, but also tackles commercial repairs. They've worked around the Strip, residential homes, commercial buildings, you name it, One in a Million has made their mark. With a 4.5-star Yelp review and countless of happy customers throughout the 15 years, you can guarantee you'll be happy with their services. All previous customers can refer an unlimited amount of friends and family for a $25 referral credit, which would come off of any future projects and or repairs if they decide to use One in a Million. This offer also extends to the Fourth Line Goon listeners. Mention this podcast and you will receive a $25 referral credit that will come off of the total cost of your repairs. One in a Million is open Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and you can find them on the web at juaninamill.com. That's JUANINAMILL.com, or you can also find them at juan.inamill on Instagram. One in a Million handyman services won't let you down. Check them out.
To speak about two things I wanted to note was like with the Dadnoff thing also, for the cover was NHL and NHLPA. They are creating a no trade documentation registry. So it's not like, hey, this person has a no trade on their contract. It's now going to be cool. Here's the proof. Right. And, this will never happen again, ideally, but that's kind of cool.
How it was always supposed to be, which is wild that that's the case. And it's also hilarious because that's the second rule now that the Vegas Golden Knights were reasoning behind changing the rules in the NHL. Of course, first being the major review penalty from the 5-minute major that was, called with Mr. Joe Pavelski. So yeah, it's crazy that happened. But I think it's for the best, right? I think both of them are for the best. You should be able to review major penalties, even if it does slow the game down a little bit. And yeah, you definitely should have a fucking record of what team you don't want to go to in the league's hands at all times.
Agreed 100%. But to speak on that note a little bit more, the sad news is like shortly after trade deadline, Senators owner Eugene Melnyk did pass away from an illness. They didn't specify what, which is interesting. I guess obviously privacy reasons, family wants to grieve, all that good stuff, which totally makes sense. Always sad to see someone in the hockey community, pass away, especially, early 60s is not super old by any means. But yeah, hearts go out to the Melnyk family. I'm sure Senators fans think it's kind of a bummer too. I know they necessarily weren't on his good list in terms of how he's managed the team lately, but you never want to see someone pass away. And obviously it's unfortunate, but something to note, sad stuff, but yeah.
I thought it was great that Erik Karlsson chimed in. He said, yeah, my time there towards the end was grim, but he noted that he's the owner, correct? The owner of the Ottawa Senators sent him a letter when his child was born, and they had been keeping civil and in touch. It's awesome to see stuff like that not get in the way of humanity. Hockey is hockey, but life is always going to be life. And beautiful thing when someone steps up to honor somebody that did a great thing. And I know I saw, was it Bettman that said that the Senators would not be in Ottawa still today if it wasn't for him. And that's a huge thing too. If you're an Ottawa Senators fan, whether you agree with his moves or not, or what he's done for that team, you have to be thankful that you still have a hockey team and the great things that he's done for that organization. So rest in peace.
Yeah, 100%.
So let's talk about something fun, right? Congrats, Vladdy, Daddy Tarasenko, 241 goals and 259 assists for 500 points in 589 games. It's all with the St. Louis Blues. Love to see it. I think that's an awesome thing. He's having a hell of a year as well, especially after requesting that trade and it didn't happen. And now he's here and he's going to have to do another playoff run with this team, regardless of what his future holds. Yeah. A hell of a career, right?
Yeah. I mean, at this point, can't be anything but happy for the Blues making that trade at the draft to get him, for basically giving up a couple of bums is what it ended up being after all said and done at this point. But we'll see if he's here next year or beyond. We all hope that he is. He seems to be having fun on the ice. It seems like relationships might be mended, whether it's locker room or ownership or medical staff or whatever. So knock on wood that continues to be the case, and hopefully he stays healthy the rest of the year, healthy into the playoffs, and can help us make a deep run on the Blues side for sure.
You mentioned they moved up in the draft. Do you remember? Do you know who they had to switch out? Who they had to trade up for?
They traded a pick. I'm trying to remember. It was like David Rundblad, I think. And then like I think they swapped first rounds, or maybe they swapped him for Tarasenko. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Yeah, it was David. That basically we traded our 17th overall pick.
For the 16th overall pick in the 2010 draft.
Yeah.
So just one. You just moved up one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think we did that. I forget what else we gave up with that. But either way, essentially, I think it might have been a thing where it was like, hey, we'll swap and guarantee, we want this player too, but if you swap with us, maybe we'll take someone else and you guys will get him for sure, type of a thing. I think that's kind of what went down. To my understanding, but
so if they just went for one pick, then it looks like it was Joey Hishon with the Colorado Avalanche was taken 17th overall.
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. Take it back. They traded their 09 first round. This guy was already drafted. Rundblad was already drafted, and we traded him to the Senators to take that 16th round. Overall,
okay,
or 16th overall first round pick.
Gotcha. Yeah, what a hell of a draft, man. I mean, a lot of these guys are still kicking it, including Jack Campbell, 11th overall by the Dallas Stars, which is something I didn't know.
Still insane to think that the Kraken could have had Tarasenko for free.
Right. And I mean, so I've been reading up a little bit about what the Kraken are doing, and obviously as a fan of another team in the Pacific, I love seeing them fail miserably, especially being an expansion team, because I don't want them to take the thunder of what the Vegas Golden Knights did so soon after. But it's an interesting take. Apparently the GM is really going to be making the moves this offseason, and he already kind of accounted for the first season to be a bust, knowing that they weren't going to really stockpile picks at the draft, but later flip them, trade deadline, as we saw. And now they've got these picks where they can start to actually elaborate off their lineup. And then of course they picked up a lot on the open market. So that's a big part too, as well. Who'd they take? They took Vinny Dunn, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So they signed Schwartz in the offseason, which I think was a little too much, but you need somebody, right? And then they signed Grubauer as well. So he wasn't a part of that expansion. So they're picking up dudes as the league goes on, because the salary cap's only going up $1 million next year. Teams aren't affording these big contracts. If they're just at the cap bottom, right, then they have all that money to spend and become a contender sooner. So I get the logic behind it. It's just not going to be exciting for a year or two, but I wouldn't doubt if like Seattle's in the playoffs sooner than later, personally.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I give them a few years, maybe 3-4, and they'd be competing for a spot. We'll see. Definitely a lot of talent to develop and trades to be made, but
it's easier in the Pacific too. You have to that's
at least for now. I mean,
right.
Things will change, I think. But
right.
To stay on that topic, basically the coach that's just been like tossed around the Pacific, essentially Todd McClellan. He just coached his 1,000th game with LA. I think he spent like the last 7 years, or I think he spent like 7 years with San Jose, 4 with Edmonton, two now currently the coach of the Kings. So he's been on some interesting teams there, I feel like, too. He just has nothing to show for it. Probably going to continue into the future with the Kings for the next couple of years, unless something crazy happens in these playoffs. But yeah, cool for him. Cool moment for him. 1,000 games coached in NHL is definitely a cool feat, and not something really everyone gets whatsoever. So shout out to him.
Actually, 1,000 games for DeBoer as well just recently happened.
Okay.
And these guys may not be performing at like a high level, but they're seeing consistent success, and good coaches are hard to come by. It is almost as hard to come by as good goaltending in the league. So if you find a guy that can run a locker room, they're gonna trust his track record. So congratulations to both them. But before we move on any further, I really want to talk about this 2010 draft, because it's crazy, like looking at it. Yeah. First of all, I didn't know Jaden Schwartz was drafted before Tarasenko. Mm-hmm. That's crazy to me. 2 before that. First overall, Taylor Hall, really coming into his own in Boston. But then you got Tyler Seguin, Ryan Johansson, Nino Niederreiter, Jeff Skinner, Michael Granlund. There's some big names on this.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's cool that these guys are still doing. Kuznetsov, he went 26th overall. Yeah, I don't know. I had no idea.
Mark Stone was the very end of the 6th round for the Senators. How crazy is that?
Yeah, now he makes $9.5 million and he's captain of the team. It's fucking nuts. I love hearing those stories. So let's move on. I think that might be our notes.
Well, I wanted to point out too, I know it happened like almost a week ago, I think now, but the whole Nick Backstrom 1,000 points, and like I think like it was like over 700 of those points were assists. So naturally, the Capitals are like, cool, let's hold a giveaway night. Here's a soft, plushy apple. 1,000 apples, says it on that. Sponsored by whoever. And then what happens? Nick Backstrom gets a point, all on the ice, every single one of them, and it's just like. All right, and then I think in the locker room after the game, they collected a bunch. All the players like threw them at him. It was pretty funny to see.
It reminds me of that scene in not dodgeball, basketball, where they're like, "What an unfortunate thing to happen on dozen egg night," and everyone's chucking the eggs. Because I mean, who the hell thought like a plush apple was the way to go, especially if the dude's gonna have a point in the game? Yeah. What did they do? Did they sweep them all up and shovel them in and then hand them back out to people as they're leaving to the parking lot or some shit?
I don't know if people got them. That's a good question, actually.
Put them shits on eBay, dude, and make some money off it. Can I get my apple back? Hey, by the way, I didn't mean to toss that shit.
100%. But yeah, congrats to Backstrom. Solid Swede, 1,000 points, super cool. But I think that mostly catches us up here for this week. I think I have a couple questions or so.
Yeah, we have some fun questions. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Go back and watch the most recent episode. Listen to it. It was a lot of fun. We went over the trade deadline, and there's lots to talk about. We're going to have a few more episodes before we get into the postseason, which is going to be, exciting as it is. It's where we started our when we started this podcast was during that run with the St. Louis Blues. So it's always exciting to talk playoff hockey. It's like next level, and we're a month out. So we're going to have a few more episodes before we get into that. Digging up some of these questions. Of course, my phone wants to be a dickhead. There it is. All right, cool. So let's start with Sam Crafton. What's up, Sammy boy? How you doing?
Go. What's up, Sam?
Will the Blues re-sign Perron and Husso or potentially make a run at getting Matthew Tkachuk? So you're going to have a more elaborate answer than me, so I'm going to go first.
Sure.
I think Tkachuk's out the window. They can't afford him. I don't understand how they would be able to unless they move out Tarasenko. Like, an early playoff exit. He's like, fuck this. I still don't want to be here. Get me out of here. Yes. Then we could maybe talk about Matty Tkachuk. But I mean, you have to move something big, right? Like that. Husso, I mean, that's to be seen, right? He needs to get paid at least probably what Binnington's making. He wants more so not over money. He wants the number one spot. So I guess this offseason is going to be really interesting for the Blues. I say Perron stays. So that's my 2 cents on all those.
Yeah, I mean, I think barring something drastic like a Matthew Tkachuk, I think Perron stays as well. That being said, like the only way you're getting Matthew Tkachuk is by making some crazy trade with the Flames because he's an RFA. He's not a UFA. So I think that makes it even more unrealistic, like partying with like a first round pick or two and like a Robert Thomas for Matthew Tkachuk. I don't think I'm down for that personally. If he's a UFA and he's like, yeah, I want to sign in St. Louis, like maybe that's the situation. But I think it's probably gonna be a similar situation where Brady Tkachuk had, where he's like, I don't really care to be in Calgary. Like it's cool here, we're a contending team, and I want to get paid. So if you're not gonna pay me, I'm gonna hold out like Brady Tkachuk, like my little brother did, and you're gonna do the same thing for me. Otherwise, you'll see you 2 weeks late in training camp. So that's what I see happening. Super unlikely at this point. It'd probably be a situation like 6, 7, 8 years down the road where he might be traded. He might be that UFA and wants to come home. Blues are potentially, have still competitive team, all that fun stuff. So I think we're still a good 6, 7 years away, like 2028, 2029 for Matty Tkachuk to come home. Same with Brady. I mean, that's the cool thing too, is like both of them could similarly come back around the same time, which would be super cool too. But still got over half a decade, I think, left on that guy for that.
Seems like that's a St. Louis move to get a guy at the end of his prime anyways, right? I don't know. Yeah. At least it was back in the day. So get both Tkachuk boys like towards the end of their career at a discount price after they've already been beaten down and they're angry from being in Canada their whole careers. I don't know, dude. Matthew Tkachuk has been pretty vocal about not wanting to be in Canada, so that could be a thing. I really think it comes down to Gaudreau, right? Are they going to throw a bunch of money at Gaudreau and keep him there, or are they going to let him walk? They're not going to sign both. So lots of interesting talk this offseason for sure for not only the Blues, but these teams that are right at the cap. Which leads me to the next question from Alex Miller. Will Vegas sell this offseason, or will they try with basically the same team next season? I mean, I think they, in the minds of the office, they have their team. They think that this is a team good enough to win the Stanley Cup when healthy. With that being said, you do have to make moves to be under the cap, even with it going up just $1 million next year. So I think we're going to see basically the same team. They're going to have to sell a little bit, but they're going to try to do the bare minimum. I do think a Riley Smith extension is going to be intimate. That's not the
imminent.
Imminent.
Trying to get intimate with Riley Smith. What's going on?
They're going to light some candles, maybe draw a bubble bath, and stick their toes in it. Whatever they got to do. No, I think that it's pretty much going to be the same team next year. The only big question mark is Pacioretty done? Is Alec Martinez done? Are these guys that are towards the end of their career with these big injuries, or at least these injuries that keep rearing their ugly heads, are they pretty much done to the point where they're going to either be traded off or LTIR for the last year of their contract, whatever it may be? That's my take.
Yeah. I mean, I think the short answer is they're going to sell to get under the cap. That's it. That's it. It's not a big piece or big pieces, but I think that's the move. And that's probably what we're looking at at least next year, if not two for them, just to keep the core, see how it plays out. And then maybe at that point you're rebuilding. Who knows?
Chris George wants to know, is Will Smith trying to get a job as an NHL enforcer? Seems to be smacking around a lot of people lately. He's smacking around people when they're unexpecting it. So he's kind of pulling a Taylor Hall, right? Oh, wow, hey, let's talk about that. It was a kind of a shitty, lame leeway. But do you think what Taylor Hall did is suspension worthy?
No,
I don't think so either. I think people were kind of making a big deal out of it. It looked like he flicked him, but he didn't really hit him.
Hit the side of his helmet, and the guy just died on the ice. It's not like a debilitating hit by any means.
He is concussed, and he did leave the game. So it's worse than it looked, but I don't know. It didn't look that bad to me. I think maybe a suspension of 2 games. I know people are pissed about the $5,000 fine and how that's jack shit, especially to somebody like Taylor Hall. But I don't think it was worth all that, personally.
Yeah, I mean, I don't either. I mean, was it retaliating to a big hit? Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's not like he threw a full-on punch at the guy. It wasn't like Austin Matthews full-on cross-checking Darlene across the side of the neck. It's two different things. So
even what Pacioretty did was worse. I can't remember who it was, but he punched somebody in the back of the head earlier this season, and that was much worse. Yeah. But it depends. I mean, you don't want to see guys sucker punching in the league, so we're not standing for that at all. But ultimately, I think the punishment justified the crime for sure. All right, so that's about it, man. It wraps up the episode. We really appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure you follow us on YouTube. That's a big thing. Subscribe on YouTube and hit fourthlinegoon.com to find us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And we'll be talking next week with a better picture of the playoffs. You got anything to add here at the end?
No, it's be fun going to randomly the Duck Stars game tonight. So go Stars.
Okay.
I'm sure you love to hear that.
Yeah, fuck you. Get out of here. God damn it. No, yeah. Well, I think Dallas they're gone. I think I think they're in. To me, the big question mark is whether Edmonton shits the bed. But I'll be paying attention for sure. Probably the only time I'll ever voluntarily watch a Dallas Stars and Ducks game. So the
big question mark for me is, what do I do with my Trevor Zegras bobblehead I'm getting tonight? Because I don't want it.
Hold on to it, because when that dude winds up eventually winning a cup, it might be worth something. You never know.
We'll
All right. Well, maybe you can sell it to our friend Hayden. Honestly, you can hit him up hey man, if you want to go down memory lane.
Wow.
Remember when you held I still have it somewhere. Is it right here? Can I dig it up? Yes, hold on. I feel like I need to bring this up. You were an absolute beauty for donating this. I remember you held this over
Yeah.
my head for like a week or 2 weeks. You were like, okay, you're like, I could sell this on eBay. And I'm like, fuck you. Look how beautiful that is.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So hold on to the Trevor Zegras bobblehead. It's going to be worth something, I'm sure, because that kid's got a hell of a career ahead of him. So
Fair enough.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Fourthlinegoon.com. We'll see you guys next week. Cheers.
Howdy, guys.